Do you remember what it feels like to truly cherish trading cards? Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh!, even Digimon brought a special kind of excitement to children all around the world. I remember doing odd chores, saving up my weekly allowance, and racing to the local card shop to crack open some packs. For some, you might not understand the thrill of pulling a Blue Eyes White Dragon, sharing it with your cousins and family, and seeing all of their confused expressions as you soaked in the joy that they could never relate to in the slightest. That feeling is hard to describe, but it's also unforgettable. These days, that kind of passion seems almost extinct, and also extremely rare, with so many dishonest collectors and scalpers all trying to make a lot of money with trying to sell off a piece of cardboard with a specific print on it that's surprisingly worth over $1,500. But when it does show up, it's often an over-the-top spiel done for clout, views, or even pity, especially when somebody like Cooper shows up on your feed who genuinely shares his love for this passion, but is constantly being taken advantage of with sob stories into making him hand out all of his binders full of cards, or even exclusively rare cards, all paid for by you.
Pokemon vendor from TikTok that gives people like little old me free cards. Charizard's really the only thing that's keeping me going some days. God, if only I had this.
When I first approached My Card is Better Than Your Card, I went in expecting just another TCG, a repetitive game where you build a strong deck just to OTK your opponent before they can even do anything. And while that may be possible, I couldn't have been more wrong. This game captures the purely wholesome, down-to-earth feelings of the early 2000s, reflecting on what it is like to enjoy trading card games for the joy of it, not just to be toxic and not to make money, but to have fun and to make genuine friends and connections. And it's these very feelings that will have you coming back for more. Before diving into what makes this game so special, it's worth mentioning a few things that might initially disrupt the gameplay for some players. But if you do stick with it and take the time to understand the game's mechanics, you'll realize that these aren't flaws, but rather intentional features that are designed to immerse you in the world and spirit of, again, the early 2000s. When a match drags on past 15 turns, the game goes into sudden death mode, winner take all. For some taking their time, this might feel immersion breaking, but for others, it can perfectly capture the feelings that it's trying to convey. And if this confuses you, let me help you understand. Let's think back to when you were a kid, running around, playing outside, and suddenly hearing your parents yelling for you to come home. This would only be relevant for those growing up in the late 90s, as we didn't have phones or instant ways to communicate long distance outside of a landline. Just our promises to be home on time for supper and curfew, and if we did miss that, in came the booming voices. The sudden showdowns in this game capture that exact feeling. It's not of boredom of the kids, but the reality that playtime has to end for school, meals, or sleep, and that we need to wrap things up so that we can go about our days. If you understand this, it's wonderful, but if you still don't, it can feel like it takes away from the overwhelming power spikes that you can pull off in the longer fights. But it adds a layer of tension, of needing to pull off a strong comeback now and soon. Like a good example would be, I didn't have access to a memory card for my Nintendo 64, so sometimes I was up bright and early before school playing my favorite game Winback, and while I'm in an intense fight, my parents would demand that I end my session immediately and turn off the console and go to school. No! Knowing that we turn off my console and I would have to redo all of my progress, I just wanted to see the final boss and the credits roll. But it was never enough time, so I would always have to rush and finish up what I could, sometimes even sneaking my console on all night when I unplugged the cord and hid it under a blanket. You can clearly tell that this game is a very colorful and delightful look into TCGs. The bright, vibrant colors speak to you with a sense of childlike wonder. Everything feels fresh, exciting, and new. A stark contrast to the cold, gray, and often bleak way most of us see life now as adults. Every action you make, that being playing a card, completing a combo, defeating an opponent, or even losing, carries no anger or frustration, only the pure joy and entertainment that comes from the game's immersive experience. The kids in this game look as though they are having the time of their lives. The experience is infectious. The game itself seeps into your own mind, making you feel the excitement through roleplay. That is a very rare and impressive achievement to invoke in a player when somebody like myself goes from quiet gaming to immersive monologuing. Okay, so this is Laura and her dad works at Nintendo, so she usually gets access to like the best prints for her burst deck, which is really annoying because my mom doesn't really like the game, so I have to get my best friend Elias to trade cards with me, and also the money that I get from my grandma to make a good enough deck to share with everybody else, which really sucks. No, this isn't part of the lore, I'm doing it because it's fun. I swear, Panini, I'll get you and I'll make it look like an accident.
You may have had me in the earlier stages, but now it's time to show you my true power. With the heart of the cards I draw, utterly overpowered. This is it. there's nowhere for you to run. First, I summon Honeyfin Swarm. It grants me 11 extra energy due to my current tokens of 11 bugs, giving me a total of 11 energy. Now for my final move. I summon Utterly Overpowered, now that I can afford it, in this final turn of Showdown.
It's not possible. No one's ever been able to call him.
And by exchanging 6 fish, I unleash 54 stars of power.
Impossible!
And just to seal your fate, I bring out Sunfish Wizard, which allows me to draw 1 card from my deck and add it to my hand, allowing me to multiply my total power by 4, which brings me to a total of 214 damage to your current Showdown win rate. Of course, using my leftover fodder cards only puts salt in the wounds as I boost it even higher. And now I attack you directly! Every interaction feels like this, a burst of creativity and immersion that pulls you deeper into the game's ever-scaling challenges. It isn't just a casual experience because it's surprisingly well designed in how it lets you craft and customize. You have your own full creative freedom. The cards aren't traditional trading cards, but rather interchangeable stickers that you can mix and match to create your own cards. All that's missing is the highly requested ability to name each card and also character customization, and this game would be absolutely perfect. If you do end up pulling a good card in a trade or a pack, but it's not quite what you want, you can end each day by rearranging your composition of every card in your deck, tearing off stickers, and creating new cards. The possibilities are endless. Unlike the complicated drawn-out TCGs filled with terrains, life points, and stat-heavy battles and all these rules, this game tosses all of that aside and replaces it with something much simpler. Stars. You know, like the gold stars you'd get in class for good behavior when you were acting up? No? Anyways, the goal here is to rack up enough points to fill up the bar at the top of the screen. If you need 450 to win, and your opponent already is sitting at 200, that means you need a total of 650 points to come out on top. That or hit the green zone during the sudden death mode to clutch a win. The cards that you start with depend on which pack you've chosen at the beginning of each run. Unfortunately, you can't just jump straight in with a custom deck, though that would be a pretty good idea. You do have to start with one of the preset packs, though over time you will unlock the ability to tailor these decks into your own style at the end of the day. Even though your chosen pack still comes with its own default relics and powers, keeping each deck's identity intact, there's still a lot of diversity here to play around with. Each turn starts by giving you 1 candy and 1 card by default. You can then choose to gain another candy or another card, saving up your candy for future turns while stacking up cards to a maximum of 5. Candy here acts as the energy source. Without it, you cannot play your cards. After each encounter, you progress to the week, choosing different activities and opponents to face. Along the way, you'll also unlock new decks, collect new stickers, and trade both cards and sticker journals with others. You can even build entirely new cards from scratch, and if you combine the right pieces, the results can spiral into some truly wild creations, effectively turning into something like Exodia from Yu-Gi-Oh! Or even the super rare foil cards. With how many pieces are available, there is just so much here to collect in the long haul for a full completion. At first glance, my card is better than your card might not seem all that appealing, and to that I say, my dad could beat up your dad, so I'll see you on the playground tomorrow. The challenge here ramps up steadily as you progress to the future runs, each represented as a new week. Week 1 starts off casual, but by week 2 things really kick into gear, and by week 3 it gets really hectic, and the higher that you climb, the more brutal the opponents become with their combo systems and effects. Even if there isn't a whole lot of variety in the characters, the decks here continue to change and alter depending on the path and difficulty that you've chosen. So if you're in the mood for something that truly captures the original feelings of collecting, creativity, and the joy of discovery, or you just want something deeply satisfying, it's one early access indie game that you do not want to miss out on, that's for sure.